Well, this is my video on how to repair broken headstocks. I got a broken headstock right here, and here's a guitar with a broken headstock, and we're going to put that together using West Systems Epoxy, which is what I use, and then I put in carbon fiber strips to reinforce it, and my opinion is that it makes it twice as strong as or more than when it was new. So if this were to fall over during a gig, it probably wouldn't break on you. If it does, it'll break in a different spot. So we'll show you how to do that. So hold on. First thing you got to do is make sure that the headstock fits properly back on the neck, and you got to get it lined up excellent, so you have to take some time and make sure that's good, and of course you got to take all the crud off. Once you have all your stuff taken apart, all the components off the headstock so you can fit things real well, it's important that you keep things organized, and I use these fantastic cups from Starbucks. Keep all the parts in. So anyways, this guitar, as you can see, has been burst from here up. That means it's been repaired before. So just gluing them together is not strong enough. So that's why I use the graphite strips. So this here is an example of a repair I've done on another guitar a while back, and it was missing some wood, so you can see where I had to scab in a piece of wood. And I do all that before I put the strips in. So this is an old Gibson Les Paul as well. It's pretty wasted, but still a good guitar. So next step is you have to make sure that these things mate perfectly before you glue it together. So you'll have to make sure that you put wax around the bolt and around this black wood in here to make sure that the epoxy won't stick to it. And I use West Systems Epoxy for this. I feel it's the best epoxy out there. It's very strong, and it's actually sandable, and it's very stiff. It's not like some of these epoxies are kind of gummy and pliable. But anyway, so first thing you want to do is make sure it fits. A lot of times you have to clean up a lot of broken wood before you can make it fit. And I believe on this one, we're going to get extremely lucky knocking that in. It is a perfect fit, and I really don't have to do much to it other than glue it. It is just flatter than flat. Of course, I'll have to adjust it a little tiny bit when I get to the gluing, but it's pretty level already. A lot of times on these, I will take off the plate here that has the Gibson on. It's a plastic piece or something, and I'll take the time to take that off. But in this particular case, I'm not going to do that because it absolutely fits perfect. So next step will be mixing the glue and putting it on and clamping it. I use this El Cheapo Johnson paste wax, and I use that to put on anything I don't want the glue to stick to. And one of the things we definitely is we don't want it to stick to this nut on here. So we get a lot of that on there. Just pack it on pretty good. Try not to get any on the wood because you don't want that to not glue. Then you can wipe some up here. Just make it easier to get anything off. You generally wipe the stuff off, and you'll end up scraping this stuff off eventually anyway, so it's going to have to be refinished. I'll like to get this covered here, the inside here. That way it's easier to scrape the stuff off. Don't want anything on there if you can help it. Once again, making sure you don't get any on the glue now. There. Now it's time to go mix the glue up. Like I said before, I used West Systems. It's a 2-part epoxy, and it's good stuff. I keep all sorts of pieces of wood around to help me in the process. This piece of wood, I've repaired quite a few headstocks with this, and what I do is I line it with packing tape because the epoxy does not like to stick to that too well. And so I'm always able to get this off without too much problem. And this piece of wood here I'll be using for the back so I don't put clamps into the back of the wood and make a dent. So here's a little bit of this. Put that on there. And pretty much all set to go. And then I like to mock up and make sure I know what I'm going to do when I get the glue on there. So I clamp it up first to make sure I'm able to do it. And I'll show you in a sec. Now this headstock here fits so perfectly, it's not going to take much of a clamp. All I need to do is hold it in position until the glue sets, and it's just such a tight fit. You can see, hopefully you can see on there how tight that is, and it is literally perfectly level. So there you go. Time to go mix glue. One thing I do want to note that this here is such a steep break that there's not much gluing surface on here, as you can see. So even if you do glue it and just leave it, it probably would not hold. It would probably hold and play for a while, but the second you bumped it, it would break again. So that is why you have to use the graphite. I know a lot of people use wood splints or splices in there, but I use graphite because it's less invasive, and it's, like I said, it's twice as strong. Well, maybe even more. My son plays in a band. He's dropped his Les Paul after I repaired it with graphite, and he's able to finish the gig because it didn't break. So wood would break pretty easily again. Maybe not as easily as when it was new, but definitely not as strong as the graphite. This is the West Systems I use. It's kind of expensive to get into. It's a 5-to-1 mixture. You'll notice the pump sizes are, well, maybe you can't notice it, but this puts out 5-to-1 of the hardener. Usually you buy a smaller hardener thing, but I go through a lot, so I keep it around. Okay. Okay, once I've got the glue mixed, I take one of these cheap throwaways and I get things all gooped up on both pieces, on the both sides, to ensure that it's got good adhesion going on through all surfaces. Okay, that one's ready. I never made a video for repair before. This is my first one. I watch a lot of them on YouTube, though. Actually, I learned quite a bit from doing that. I am a guitar hobbyist. I'm not a luthier or anything like that. I'm more of a guitar mechanic, I guess. But I do like working on guitars. Can't help myself. I feel like I'm addicted or something. But I do good enough repairs. They're not as pretty sometimes as these professionals and stuff, but you know what? They're still good. Now, I keep towels around for when I get this thing done. I can wipe up all the excess glue on it. Get that on there real straight. Wipe the excess squeeze out as you go. You don't want it dripping all over the place. Neat thing about this epoxy, it's you got about a 4-hour pot time or more, or less, I don't know. But make sure you get all the squeeze out. I'm not sure you can actually see that. See if I can make this. I'll dig this down a little bit so you can see maybe, I don't know. There. And maybe put some light on it, a little bit different light. I don't know if you can see how that mates absolutely perfectly. With my little persuader. There. I think that's good. Now we'll just clamp it up and we should be good. I'll come back in a sec. Okay, there you have it. It's all glued up. Now we're just going to let it sit for 8 hours or so, or probably overnight. And then we'll go ahead and get that all cleaned up, and we'll start cutting the slots for the graphite or carbon fiber strips and get those glued in. Also, when I do that, I use West Systems to glue that in. I use West Systems for anything that was not intended to be broken. I would never use it on a joint or anything like that, something that might need to come apart for repair at another time. But in this particular case, it's a very good glue to use. Okay, it's the next day, and I've taken the clamps off, and the guitar's turned out absolutely perfect. It is so level that you can't feel any unlevel portion here, so it turned out excellent. The previous repair, the guy has put something over here. It's not, this little piece right here is not original. It's a little bit thicker than it's supposed to be, so I'm going to have to scrape that down level. But because of that, that's one of the reasons I decided not to take this plate off here. I'm going to go ahead and make the cuts for the splines. I'm going to go on each side of the truss rod here so I don't get into the hole. But I'm going to take it through this side and go all the way through. And quite normally, if I do this repair, I don't do that. I always, if I leave the faceplate on, I usually come from the back, and then I always measure, make sure that I put a stop on my cutter so that I know I'm not going to go through. But in this particular case, I'm just going to go through this side, just because this is all unlevel anyways, and because I'm going to be keeping this guitar for myself, and it's not for any customer or anything, I'm not going to care if you see any of that. I am going to go ahead and fill it and paint it and everything, but you'll probably still, after a while, all glues shrink, and so it'll end up showing eventually, if not right away. Same happens on the back, but okay. Now, for making the cut, this is what I use. This is a multi-master tool, and it's by Fine, and it's spelled F-E-I-N, and it basically just vibrates through, and it cuts excellent. I got this real thin blade on it so that I don't make the cut bigger than I want to. So in just a moment I'll get set up and I'll show you how I do the cutting. Okay, here we go. Okay, you can see that we went all the way through there. Now I took this cut beyond the break, and the reason I did that is because I'm going to go higher up here in case it takes a big bang again. It'll be a little bit stouter. I don't want it to break from here up. I'll take it a little bit farther. And also the same thing in the back. You can see I haven't got too far. I'm just down to the break right here. Now I'm going to go on this side and come down a little bit farther so that I get the whole thing really strong. I don't want to take a bump and just have it break right off again right there, because that's the new weak point. Make sure I don't go in too deep. Don't want to go through the fretboard. So we're going to measure it a little bit. Okay. I'm going to do the rest of the cutting offline, but I just wanted to show you what kind of happens here. As you can see, I went probably half inch. I might take it a little bit farther down, because I really don't know what the repair is on this, how far down it went, the original repair. You can't really see too much underneath it, but I think there was damage down to here. I can just see some extra grain right in this on the paint in that area. But I'm going to do the rest here offline, and I'll come back when I'm done. Okay, so there it is, all done. Now I just gotta go ahead and get out the splices and cut them to fit. You can see it kind of makes a mess out of things, but you know what? It all gets taken care of when you're doing the finish work. So, and that's about it for now. I used to make my own carbon fiber strips, and I've just bought this carbon fiber, just woven material like fiberglass, and then I would just use West Simpson's epoxy, and I would sandwich it between some nylon sheets and get it nice and flat. When you do put it on, though, you can see how thin it is. It's just thinner than thin. And so actually I would double and triple these up sometimes, but it's plenty strong. I always scuff it up really good before I glued it in to make sure that I'd have more adhesion on there, because right now this is really glossy, and glues don't like to stick to things that are smooth and glossy. So now this stuff here I found online, and it was fairly cheap. I think it's probably from China, but it's all ready to go. I just have to scuff it up, and I just cut it oversized, get it in the holes, glue them in, and then I shape it all when I'm done. I'll show you when I get to that point. And this is what it looks like when it's all glued up. You can kind of see it's quite a mess, but it all cleans up very well. Something I wanted to mention is that while you're doing all this work and taking your time to fit all the shims in properly, which I did not film, you have to be very careful, because the neck is very fragile when you're doing this work, because it's the slots are thin. So okay, it's the next day, and looks like everything is cured. It's pretty ugly right now. Got a lot of scraping and shaping to do, but pretty much it's straightforward kind of work that you would do on any other kind of neck repair. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started scraping. Now this is the scraper I use. I buy these by the horde, I guess. Yeah, I just start scraping. What I do first off, I'm going to go ahead and get the front level as much as possible, and then I'll work my way onto the back, and I'll kind of show you how I do that. I guess I better aim this down just a little bit. Maybe move it a little bit closer to the neck, and then you kind of see what I do. I just kind of rest this thing here, and I put my glasses on so I can see, and just start scraping it down. Doesn't take very long. It takes long enough though. Use it to cut as well as scrape. It takes a while. Careful not to cut yourself. I have a few times. I don't know if you can see it too well, but it's just a matter of taking your time and getting it all done. I'll bring you back in a sec once I get to a certain point. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes since I recorded, so it took about 15 minutes to get it down to this level. So I got the front pretty level. Previous repair, looks like they put some white plastic in here versus whatever this stuff is made out of, and it wasn't level with the rest of it. It was kind of a little bit high. So I was, so you got to scrape it. Now I got to this point. There's a lot of imperfections here. I'll have to fill with probably some super glue, and then re-scrape it. And eventually it'll have to be extremely smooth, and then I'll go ahead and paint it black. Just airbrush it. I'm gonna try and get this. Looks like he got a little bit of overspray over the L here, and so I'm gonna try and sand that down and preserve that, and then just paint this lower spot. So anyway, it's coming out good. Now I'm going to start working on the back, trying to get those cut out and then scraped, and I'll bring you back in a minute. Okay, so I got a lot of it off. I haven't got to the final work or anything like that yet, but to get to this point I used my fine tool to cut the big chunks off, and then to get this point beyond that I used my Dremel with the sanding disc on it. So it's been took about 10 minutes to get this far. The rest is just very tedious scraping and leveling, so, and shaping, and that takes a bit. So anyway, okay, it's been about 20 minutes, and it's all pretty much to its shape. Quite a bit more finish work needs to be done, but this is kind of shows you what it should look like when you get to this point. There's a lot of pits and holes and things I need to fill, and what I usually do is I just put sawdust in there, and then I go ahead and dribble super glue on it and then reshape it. I got some real fine wood dust that I keep in a jar, but like right there you can see there's a pretty big chunk of wood missing. I don't know if you can see that or not. But anyway, came out pretty good, and it is just strong as heck. It is really strong. I would, I wouldn't do this to a vintage instrument or anything like that, but this is a gigging playing instrument. It's more of a tool than it is a piece of furniture, so that's why I do this kind of work. I like to repair guitars that are going to be used, and I'm not really into the furniture sort of idea of guitars and stuff. So anyways, it's pretty smooth. The shape is all there, just very fine finish work, and then the rest of it's just like any other neck repair. Just ferret, paint it, sand it, clear coat it, buff it, sand it and buff it, and put it back together, and away you go. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and fill that little hole there, and I have my little jar of real fine sawdust. I'm just going to pick some up and throw it in the hole. But I don't like to put too much on each time. I fill a little bit at a time. So let me take that and a little pipette of super glue and just kind of drop it in there, and it cures pretty fast. This is the real thin stuff, so it soaks in real quick. And that's all there is to it. If you wanted to, you could give it a spritz of the zip kicker. I don't know if you can see that zip kicker. Let's see if I hold it in there. Yeah, and that will make it cure instantly. But it leaves, makes it kind of full of air and stuff, so it's curing pretty quick. It's I use this super glue here. I get it at the Hobby Town, and it's the very thin stuff, so it soaks in excellently. So anyway, it doesn't take very long to cure. A lot of times it fires off real quick when you put it in sawdust, but this time apparently not, for one reason or another. So I'll bring you back in just a sec. Okay, that's pretty much dry, so we can put a little more in there. Some chunks of stuff in there I don't like. Get that out of there. There we go. And then wait a little bit. I got too much in there. Soak some of that out of there, and wait for it to dry. Okay, looks like it's cured out pretty good. I'm going to put just a little bit more in there. Just so how you know how long I had the camera off, probably about less than a minute. When you take the excess off, it really helps it cure quicker, especially if you're not using the kicker. So you can see how quickly that's drying. That's almost there. Well, gonna make more work for myself up here. Darn it. Oh well. That'll all come off when I'm scraping it. And I think just a little bit more. And we should be there. Don't want to make too much work for myself, so I can get it packed in there as good as, so it won't be too high. You want it a little bit high so that you don't leave any holes in there. So anyway, there you go. Yep, it's already cured. Okay, then it's just a matter of shaping that down and let it cure and get real hard there for a couple, 5-10 minutes, and then we'll shape it up. Pretty close. Sandpaper, and make sure there's no high spots. I want to dig in and make more work for myself, so it'll work very lightly on here. So from that spot up top, I screwed myself up there. There we go. Oh yeah. You can see some of this white stuff. The original repair, the guy used some kind of, looks like wood filler. I don't really care for that stuff too much, but it's there, so I'm not going to take it out or anything. I like to fill with wood and super glue, or wood, depending how big it is. But I don't like to use wood filler or Bondo. I know a lot of guys do. And being I'm just a hobbyist, I don't really, you know, I'm not trained in this, so I like to repair stuff, so I've done all sorts of repair work. Cars, house, all that stuff, so anyways, that is perfect. You know, we'll move on to the top. An interesting note here, this black area right here is the same as this white stuff. So this stuff was put in, I can see the angle is put in like this big white piece. And so when it broke across it again all the way here, here, and like this. But this is pushed in right here. So I believe that that was the initial impact on the last break. You can tell it's really been mushed in there and cracked right through here and around there. So I think that what happened is when this fell, probably fell on its face and hit right there, and that's what broke the top off. So okay, after lots of filling and a little bit of shaping with the sandpaper and everything, I believe we got this here ready to go for its final wet sand and sealer, and then she'll be all set for paint. But she looks a lot better than she did when she had all that stuff, all the splices and everything sticking out. So anyway, just so you get to see what she kind of looks like now. Everything's level. I mean, it is very level. You'll be able to see the cracks and things because I'm not going to sit for a couple of weeks and wait for all the glues to completely cure and dry. They all shrink. But being this is a player's guitar, it's not a you know, in mint or anything. That'll be good enough. And because it's going to be my guitar, I don't need it to be perfect. So, okay, I'll come back when we get her all ready to paint. Okay, it's all sanded and ready to tape up and paint. It's been sealed, wet sanded, and it's just very, very smooth to the touch. You can't feel any ridges or anything like that. She is a little bit, I wouldn't say uneven, but you can feel a wave a little bit there from I probably had to scrape too much to get that all out. But it's not bad, and like I said, well, this will all be covered by strings. You won't notice it once the strings are on and stuff. But I did try and get down to this, but it looks like he'd actually sanded off and the less part off, and then so I thought I would just get down to that level where the black was, and it turns out I was starting to take a little bit off myself, so I'm just gonna leave that. Anyways, she's ready for paint. All set. Well, here it is painted. You can see the stripes still a little bit in there, a little bit glossier, but once you get the clear on it, it'll be better. And of course my airbrush wasn't working too good today. It was very irritating, but like I said, it's not going to be perfect, and we don't expect it to be, but it'll be a nice playing guitar when we get it all back together. So there you go. After a disastrous time with my paint gun, I loaded it up with a lot of paint so I could level it, and it came out all right. I mean, it's not pretty, but you know what? I'll shoot. Well, I'll sand it up real good with some 1,000 and then maybe 15. And then I'll go ahead and shoot some clear over it, and it'll get pretty nice. It'll shine. I had some pitting in the paint here, but I decided that's good enough. I'm gonna go ahead and touch up a little bit over here, might in some of these little holes here before I shoot the clear on it, and then re-level it. But that's pretty close for what it's gonna be. It looks a lot better than it did, so that's good enough. I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, here it is all pretty much done except for the buffing. It's not perfect. I ended up with some holes in the paint, but I'm not going to repair those because it's good enough for me. But I think it turned out pretty good. Oh, it's a little bit wet still. But anyways, it's, you know, it's not bad. It's, I'll show you what it looks like once I get it all buffed up. But like I said, it's good enough for an old Les Paul that it's just going to be played. So there you have it. Okay, I decided not to take it to the buffer. I just did it by hand. And as you can see, I went through the paint a little bit here and there. Not too bad. But you know what? For a player, she's good enough. She looks, you don't want it looking better than the rest of the guitar. The rest of the guitar is kind of wasted, so. But it's not too bad. Looks like a guitar again. You can see it's pretty dinged up here and there. I guess it's kind of shiny, you can't really tell. But there you go. I'm going to go ahead and string her up here in a little bit, and maybe I'll play it for you. Okay, I got her all strung up. I haven't adjusted it or anything. It's in tune, and that's what she, well, shoot, I wish I could get some light on it. Maybe that'll help. But that's what she kind of looks like. You can see, you can't really, I mean, your eye isn't like drawn to this big ugly break anymore. And the back side does not look too bad. And let's see, I don't know if we can, a lot of glare in there so I can't tell. Anyway, love this thing. It's not adjusted up or anything, but boy, it sure sounds good. There you have it, folks. Okay, I got her all dialed in and she's ready to play. It's pretty nice, came out pretty good. I can't complain too much. Had to set the, or I had to work on the nut just a little bit. It was too low and they were rattling. The neck was a little bit, had too much bow in it, so tightened it up, got the right amount of relief on it, and had a couple of high frets, had to pound in just a little bit, and now it plays good. You can see. So it does, it was grounding out a little bit before that. So anyway, play a little something. That's all she wrote. Thanks for watching.